Good morning, good noon, good morning, good noon, good afternoon, good evening, good night. It's your Olinda here again, bringing you the new episodes of Opera Words Season 2. So today we're going to talk about Matt's newest production of Salome by Richard Strauss. I went to the Met Opera during the premiere and then I was too busy for the AP seasons or whatever. So yeah, it's finally June. I finished everything that's currently on my tasks. So let's go back to podcast. Yeah. And alright. Okay. So let's jump in. Salome was legend. When I believe in May, I saw people flying all the way from Connecticut to New York just for Salome. So, okay. Salome is based on a play by Oscar Wilde, which is based on the biblical story of King Herod, his stepdaughter Salome, and the prophet Joachim, aka John the Baptist. John the Baptist is a pretty decently messed up story. So Herod loses after Salome, and Salome falls in love with Joachim, and Joachim wants nothing to do with her, and Salome ends up asking for his head on a silver platter. So yeah. So that's basically it. It's like not an average opera, not like average Puccini Verdi opera where the focus is love and there are often men or women dying, especially women sacrifice themselves for the completion of the story. But rather here we have this evil female figure who essentially try to reach her goal with whatever method, evil or not. So what makes Salome stands out isn't just the plot or the feminism behind it, but like more than so saying is how the Met choose to interpret this time. So this is about 20 years that the Met finally retired the old Salome production and brought in Klaus Goth to direct this new one. And when I say new, I mean dark, psychological, and a little disruption. But in a way that totally works for this opera. So the entire production is set inside this massive, decaying Victorian mansion. So there is no flashy sets or elaborate costume changes, but instead is all about the mood, or let's be Z generation, but the vibe. So there's dark room, long corridors, and candlelight shadows. It feels like a haunted house version of Salome Spring. And honestly, this definitely makes perfect sense because the staging adds a huge psychological dimension to the story. And again, Salome isn't just a bratty teenager anymore. She is more like someone who carries deep trauma, and it shows. So in this version, we see multiple versions of Salome on stage. Salome as a child, a teenager, and adult singing this role. So it isn't just gimmick anymore. These younger versions appear throughout the opera. All these Salomes together feels like memories or fragments of what she used to be in different time period, and all of these suggests that Salome is stuck reliving some awful past over and over, and the events of the opera are her way of working through it, or failing to. But I think the main point is that we can digest it through this feminine perspective as understanding how Salome transit into this role that she is currently in, because despite all this and that she did to John the Baptist, we can more so understand her as a complete person, not as this single role in this opera. The stage setting definitely diversify how she is as a person or as a character. So let's talk about the singers now. First off is Ilse van der Heuvel, who plays Salome. Well, I mean, this role is a vocal marathon, as what I used to describe. Who was the last person I used to describe? Oh, Queen of the Night from the Magic Flute. So there is basically no breaks and it demands everything. The intensity, the range, the control, and a whole lot of stamina. So Elsa absolutely nailed this technical part, but what impressed me more is how she managed to act the role, and Salome is usually portrayed as seductive and cruel, but now in this setting she feels more haunted, broken, and sometimes terrifying. It is all, under this setting, the fragile of the characters, and you can actually see how in her voices the heightened fragments are there, and it also balance all those things while still hitting those massive notes. Well, respect. That was great. And we have Peter Mathiel as Joshanen, and well, that was great. I really like how he played the character, that he wasn't stiff or oversend-like. Instead, his Johanna had this quiet intensity, a kind of internal fire that he wasn't interested in yelling his belief at anyone, but rather exists like a solid and rock force. And is low-key kind of totally untouchable. And Mattel's voice has that grounded, rich baritone sound that made it believable. And you can see why Salome would be obsessed with him, because he's those kind of, what can I say, American soldier-like man. He's a rock. And also from another perspective of the plot or the synopsis, he's the only one who's not trying to manipulate Salome. So there is this kind of like savior relationship in there. And we have Gerhard Siegel as hero. And he was appropriately gross, but a little bit over. He's one of those singers who can make a character feel real without going over the top. And his hero was greasy, paranoid, and desperate. So every time he spoke to Salome, it's like watching someone peel the skin off a fruit with their nails. But uncomfortably in the best way. Michelle de Young played Herodes, Salome's mother, and she brought this mix of frustration and detachment that made the dynamic of the entire family even more messed up. At the end, we have to understand that Herodes is still messing up with his stepdaughter, no matter how wrong Salome did, but I think Hero's fault should be weighted more. And yeah, let's talk about the orchestra. Because Salome is basically a symphony without singing on top. That's the kind of Strauss style. You can see the symphonic aspect of his work, and I really like that. Think about the Night of the Rose and Electra, right? That's one of the most significant character of his work. And with that being said, I think the Met Orchestra isn't doing anything wrong, but I was roasted at Yannick Noizet-Séguin. Yannick Noizet-Séguin thought he demands everything, and he thought his conducting was one of the best things about this performance. He was putting advertisements everywhere. And Strauss' score is intense and lush, full with mood swinging. And Yannick thought he got it again. And Yannick was trying to lean into every one of them, but he made it too dramatic and the strings are overload. It's like it is exploding in a way that is over romanticized, or is basically too fancy, and the strings are trying to make large sound, but all of these together it just doesn't work, and Yannick might probably need to go back and practice his basic baritone scale. But okay, I shouldn't be too harsh, but that's my real voice. And supposedly the sections are supposed to bring together into this massive, intensive opera and setting that makes you can't breathe because the nervous or the excitement, but because of the emotions. But instead, Yannick was because of Yannick's command to the orchestra, it actually creates this web that demands you and makes you out of breath in a really decently bad way. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the orchestra overflowed the opera. Yeah, okay, finally. But as a whole, Salome is really important, and if I published this episode 2 weeks ago in the middle of May, I would definitely encourage everyone to go see it. But since it is off, I would kindly ask you, if you want to watch it, just go buy Matt's subscription. I don't mean a subscription, but rather Matt's on demand, the virtual service they provided. So Salome is really amazing, and if I mention or not, I think people flying from everywhere in this is everywhere near New York, just go see it. So it's really amazing, and Salome is an opera that I respected for long. It's considered those like quotation mark large opera, which requires large arias and skillful opera singers. So it is truly amazing, and the composition and everything is just feel so much like a dream. Is pure satisfaction despite Yannick's conducting skill. So I would definitely encourage and highly suggest you to go watch it, no matter at the Met when, like 5 seasons later, or I think they'll put it up within seasons. So yeah, I truly recommend you to go watch it. It is amazing. Yeah. Salome feels like a cultural symbol to me, because it emphasizes how women are not just fundament or stepstone of the feminist movement in opera. According to my analysis, Salome is this young girl who is constantly being objectified and controlled by the men around her, and especially her creepy stepfather Harold literally begs her to dance for him, and her mother uses her as a pawn. And even the prophet John Channon won't look her as a human being, even though previously I said he's the only one who doesn't use her or manipulate her, but he still sees her more as an object or something that I don't know. It's just he's not treating her like a human being, because back then only men respects each other. And what Salome do? She takes all of that obsession and turns it back on him. The dance of the 7 vials is often interpreted as her being sexualized, but what if it's actually her claiming her own agency in the way that only she knows how? She flips the power dynamic by commanding the head of John Channon, and yes, it's horrifying, but it is also a kind of radical. She takes control in a world where she was never supposed to have any. And I'm not saying that she's a feminist icon or anything, but there's definitely a conversation to be had about how Salome shows a woman using her voice and body as a tool to carve out space in a man's world, and what it causes her. So what I'm trying to say is that how Salome lives in this world that men ostracize her, but how she used that and take it back as an advantage to manipulate the men. Yeah, that's my, yeah, I finally say the words out. Okay, so that's kind of like my analysis at the end. And if I had to summarize, I would say this: the Mets' new Salome isn't easy to watch, but I think we're getting this 2025 versions of the generation voices into it and add this little dynamic and interpretations to this old opera. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for still listening to this opera after I kind of ghosted it for a month. So if you have any thoughts, questions, or opinions on what I said, or just want to talk to me, feel free to email me at aulindatang@gmail.com. It is aulindatang@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in my next episode, which, well, let me check. Okay, well, next one will be Antony and Cleopatra. And I think I haven't go for what. Okay, I'll check which operas I didn't get the chance to go over yet, and I will absolutely talk about it somewhere. Yep. That's it. Yay, thank you.